Hello and welcome to the next panel debate. We're going to be discussing the topic scaling climate technologies. My name is Maria, I'm Director in Clean, and I will be facilitating this discussion or friendly conversation. I don't know where we'll end up, but it's a real pleasure for me to be in this panel with these four very interesting guys. I would like to introduce Henning from AquaGreen, sorry. And I have Thomas with me, CEO in Aquadio. I have Rasmus from Nordic Alpha Partners and Jacob from Dooland. And to start off this conversation, I would like each of you to present yourselves and why you're here, why you think you're here. And then afterwards, we can start by discussing some of the topics that we have discussed and prepared for today. Go ahead, Henning.
Yes. So my name is Henning Schmidt-Petersen. I'm the CEO for AquaGreen. And why am I here? That's a good question. I guess I'm here to give you some learnings about the journey we have been on and that we're still on in AquaGreen. So we have landed an investment. And luckily, we have our investor here as well. So we're going to have some discussions about that phase, I guess.
And Henning, maybe you can just tell us very shortly, what is AquaGreen? What are you doing? What is your product?
Yes, what do? We have a solution where we do three main things. We make sure that phosphorus is being sent back to farmland. So what we do is that we dry and we clean biomasses, make sure that phosphorus goes back. During the process, we also eliminate all environmental pollutants and we make sure that we reduce greenhouse gas emissions, because when we have produced the byproduct, or the final product, which is the biochar, there will be no emissions from that. So we will actually, with our solution, be able to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from the farming industry with 50%, 50%.
Great, thanks. Thomas, will you give a short introduction?
For sure. My name is Thomas Munk. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Aquadio. We are a company that is approximately a little bit more than 4 years old. We have also been on a journey, pivoting our solution under the way, but now we're entering into a scale-up phase. We have developed IoT solutions that ultimately motivates people to reduce their time under the shower. Here the purpose obviously is to save both water, but also energy. Actually, tomorrow, I'm heading down to a housing association south of Copenhagen to install a new IoT sensor we have developed, which has the purpose to identify leaking toilets. And then you can ask yourself, is leaking toilet a challenge? Well, you can look at the UK alone, where they estimate that up to 8% of all toilets are leaking in a country that is heading towards water scarcity. So yes, leaking toilet is a massive challenge.
Thank you. And Rasmus, will you give your introduction?
Hello, my name is Rasmus. I'm an investment partner with Nordic Alpha Partners. So I am the one looking for companies like this to invest in. Nordic Alpha Partners is a late-stage venture fund and growth fund. So we invest in hard tech companies, typically tapping into either the digital or the green transformation, hopefully both. We invest when the company is in the market, has some decent traction, and is about to do the S-curve. I guess I'm invited because I can tell you what we're looking for, what not to do when you're pitching to us, and what companies we are investing in, and why.
Thank you. And Jacob? Will you give your introduction as well?
Yes, please. Thanks, I'm Jacob. I'm from the founder and CEO of Dooland. And basically what we do is we make it possible for everyone to put sort of their beliefs, their view on where their money, their investments are headed. So we have a digital investment solution where we lower the barriers to invest by lowering the amounts, making it guided and easy for people to use. You can then choose between 9 sustainability themes, ranging from green topics like today to also like stuff like social impact and health. And then we make sure it's executed, and you can follow your investments on your people's own MyDoLand space, both the financial side of things and also the impact that the investment is making. And I guess the reason I'm here today is on the one side, we are, on behalf of our customers, investing in sustainable companies through our solutions. So that's one side of things, but you could say DoLand's own technology is also a green, scalable technology, and our whole business model only works if it's 100% scalable and automated.
Thank you. Okay, so I think let's start off by taking the topic as such. It's called Scaling Climate Technology. So I would like each of you to give your take on how do we scale climate technologies, and what do you see as the biggest barriers? And now we've heard that you represent very different sides of this case, but let me hear, how would you answer to this question?
I can start. Yes. So I think point number one is that it has to be financially sustainable, even though it's a green technology. Because we cannot, at least that's what we've seen, that you cannot convince a customer that they're going to buy our equipment, our solution, just because it's green. So it has to be financially sustainable. And then I think another point is that if you really want to make an impact, because I said from the beginning that we can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions within the farming industry with 50%, and that's fine. But as long as it's only in Denmark, we have an issue because there are emissions elsewhere around the world. So that's why you have to think global. So we have to make sure that we scale up the business so that we can make a global impact on both the environmental part, but also on the climate part. And that brings me to question number two, which is about the barriers that we see. And I think for us, we're still a small company. We were four people in August last year. Today we're 21, and we're looking for 7 more. And Rasmus is telling us that we have to be 50 at year end. So that's what we're aiming at. But with this limited amount of resources and we want to go out global, that's a huge impact. It's a big task for us to figure out what are the barriers in the different countries, because even though we are part of the EU, we don't have the same legal regulations around the different countries. So that's for sure one of the barriers that we see.
Thanks. Rasmus?
Can I just concur? Sorry for jumping, Thomas,
Yeah,
because
Henning.
obviously I invested in Henning's company, so I'm glad that we agree. So that's a good starting point. But just one point is that many of the technologies that are addressing the climate challenges, etc., they are hard tech, they are hardware companies. So scaling a hardware is something completely different than scaling, an app or fintech, etc. It requires more people, it requires more money, and it goes typically slower. So it requires more patience, it typically requires more money. So that's a big part of this discussion when we're talking about green transformation. Just one other comment, I totally agree when Henning says that we've seen for many years, we've seen a lot of green cases where it's only green. But over the last the period, maybe 1 or 2 years, we see a kind of a clear tendency that people are thinking both good green case, but also a good business case. At the end, when you're selling your product, typically there's a CFO involved. And he or she has always, a finger on the bottom line of the case. So it's extremely important that you pitch to us, not only the case is better than the alternative, but it's also cheaper, at least same price.
Thanks.
Sorry for jumping, Thomas.
No worries.
Anyone can, would you like to reply as well?
Yes, I can at least describe our perspective. We started out with a good idea, and then we met reality. And during this process, you learn a lot. First of all, listen to the customer, listen to the customer, listen to the customer. It's so important when you're trying to scale up these green technologies, because you can, as an engineering, which I am, be very excited about the technology. But the technology itself doesn't make a difference. It's how you meet your customer and how you engage with them and how you listen to them, and then you bring value to the customer. And then they will automatically see the benefits also on the environmental side and the financial side. So for us, it's been a journey. Then the second thing that we are learning in our scaling phase we're in now is to really understand the pain. you are addressing. And here you have to select the country that has the biggest pain and the highest purchase commitment. And in our case, we identified England, the UK. Let me put it this way, Brexit hasn't done it easier, even though we are able to attract big English water utilities to purchase our device being made in Denmark. So for us, it's been a quite significant and quite interesting journey. The phase we are addressing now is how do we then scale it? So we're actually considering making a daughter company in the UK, because when we are talking projects, let's say in Denmark, we're talking project about, let's say, 100, maybe 200 devices. In the UK, you can add a zero behind it. So the volume is simply just bigger in a broader, especially in the UK. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can only support what Henning also said, that it's both, that's both from the perspective of us when we advise our clients, but also what we get as a response when we are out attracting investments to our business, that the impact side and the financial, the return side of things go hand in hand. So there has to be both a green impact and also a business case that is sound and is sustainable. And you could argue that only if it's financially sustainable is it really sustainable in the long run to run these things. I guess finance, that's very much the perspective of Dueland, our investment platform, that finance is, or financial flows is very much what defines society and where it's headed, and there's a huge need for financial capital to sort of get us through to the goals that are needed to address the green transition. And what we are happy about in our platform is that we can see by enabling more people to invest in this way, that we are actually attracting people to invest in a sustainable way that didn't invest before. So 40% of the people on our platform didn't invest before entering the Dueland platform. So it's a way of mobilizing capital to the green transition in a new way.
So what I'm hearing you guys say is that to be able to scale, we need investments. So I think it could be really interesting because the three of you, not you, Rasmus, you have been in the search of investors. I think a lot of people would like to know, how do you attract investors? Could you give some do's and don'ts? What has your journey, what does it look like? I think there's a lot of people listening here who would like inspiration, and I think can learn from what you've done good and what you wouldn't have done if you could have done it again.
I think one thing to start with is that you have to consider when you get a contact from an investor, it's kind of a dream because you start with this idea and then you work for free for, let's say, 5-6 years, and then suddenly you have something and somebody approaches you and say, hey, we are interested in your business. But the thing is that when one do that, there will probably be more. So one of the things that we did, we had, before we chose Rasmus, we had discussions with 24 different investors. So we had meetings with them. We picked 5 after 1.5 years, or maybe even 2 years of thinking about how to deal with this. And then we simply compared them up against each other. And it was a kind of a race. Of course, they were not informed about this. But that was a thing that we did because there are many different kinds of investors out there. And I think what for us was very important is that we needed somebody who could do something that we couldn't. So we were looking at our own strength, and then we say, what do we miss? And what can they contribute with in our organizations? That's key. So we have to be aware that we are not too impressed when you get a phone call from Rasmus, because there are others out there and they have the same target. And his main, I think, purpose is to earn money. So of course he wants to have it not for free, but as cheap as he can. But that's fine. We respect that. They are good guys. They are clever. You have to be the same. So I think that's kind of the key message here. That don't pick the first one. That will be wrong.
Okay. Good advice.
Yeah. Our journey has maybe been a little bit different. We have been raising money several times in our journey. Raising capital takes time. It takes lot more time than you think it does. So it is hard work. We have raised capital among the 3 F's. It's friends, it's family, and then someone calls the last F for fools. We call them friendly investors. And in this process, we have been able to attract everything from family members to business angels who had brought us to the level where we are today. But on our next journey, we can see that we need to step up. We need to find an investor that can take us on the international journey. But again, my advice will be raising capital isn't just something you do over the night. It takes time. It's hard work. You need to sell yourself. You need to sell your idea. And that requires a lot of patience. You sometimes are in doubt. But that's where you really find what is your passion. And when you're succeeding, attracting an investor that believes in you, that believes in the technology, you know, the enjoyment is so much larger when you succeed raising capital. But it is hard work. It's definitely hard work. Doing hard tech is hard business. It's just a fact.
How long did you spend in the first phase? You said now you're going into a second phase.
I would say overall, over my last 4 years in this company, I've spent around 25% of raising capital in different ways. Everything from soft funding to loans to dialogue with investors. So yeah, you need to be prepared for that.
Can I add one thing before we pass it on? Because another thing is that at least what we've done is from the beginning is to say that we would like an investor now when we go for equity, because you have to sell part of your baby. So that's the hard thing. That's what you do when you bring in an investor. So we were very keen on making sure that that's a long-term investor that we have, somebody that we can grow with, so that we don't need to do, as you say, spend 25% of our time finding new investors. So we would like to go with the same one on the long run. And what we did to get there to that stage, because it took us almost 5 years, or more than 5 years, before we founded the company and until we found an investor. That was what you mentioned as well. That we were looking for soft money. Because when you get soft money fundings from different funds, then you don't sell equity. And that's a huge, huge, huge difference. So the whole thing is about bringing it as far as you can, I think, until you get a valuation that you'll probably never be really satisfied, but you can accept. That's the thing. I think
yes,
that's...
I agree.
Yeah. What do you think, Rasmus?
Well, it's an interesting discussion and listening to it from the other side. One thing I would add is, I agree, you can basically choose different kinds of investors. You can bring investors only bringing money, and you can bring investors also adding real value. We are in the latter category, but some investors, some founders prefer the first one. So that's a choice. But what I would add is, in any investment relation, it's about people, right? Obviously, we invest in the technology, and I can elaborate on that. But at the end of the day, it's a marriage. It's not a long-term marriage, but it's at least a 5 or 10-year marriage. And you need to like each other, basically. Yeah. You need to build trust. Without that trust, it will never work. Yeah. So that's a key factor.
I would love to dig into your side of this story, but let's just hear Jacob's journey as well.
Yeah, sure. No, so currently we are funded by business angels, so private investors at the stage we're at. A couple of rounds, 3 rounds so far, and I can only sort of support the message that it takes time, and it takes more time than you think. And the latest round, to be honest, also surprised us how much time that took. And a lesson hard learned on, you know, it just needs to be part of daily business, basically, to have the dialogue with potential investors and keep them interested and be ready for when the round is there, you could say. Then it's also important to, I think there's a lot of opportunity if you are doing green investments, because there's a lot of interest in green investments, but be aware of what the investors' focus is. And obviously, if they have an interest in education or green transition or whatever it is, then it's more likely to get them in dialogue. But it will always come. I haven't met an impact investor yet where it does that can create the interest, But at the end of the day, they're just as diligent on the business and you know, the competitors and the scalability and the team, etc., as everyone else is. So that of course needs to be in order as well. So yeah.
Great insights. So Rasmus, now we need to hear it from your side. What are you looking for? You know, what keeps you interested, and what needs to be in place? And I mean, I think we should talk about the positive things, but also you could say, you know, what not to do. What will make you turn around and say no, thank you?
Obviously, different investors have different investment scopes, right? So I have my scope, which is hard tech, digital, and/or green. So that's the starting point. But within that, we are always looking at the value proposition.
Yeah.
Is there a strong value proposition? Is it better and cheaper than the conventional technology? Secondly, we look very much at the team. The team doesn't need to be able to do everything, because we can, at our stage, we can help them bring new people to the team. But obviously, the team needs to be strong, trustworthy. So that's a key factor. We look at the technology edge itself. Is there a technology edge? Is there IP or similar things that can really create a competition barriers to competition? We look at the market size. Is it market huge enough? We are a 10x investor, so the company needs to 10x its value during 3 to 6 years while we are in there. So you need a substantial market to grow. Typically, the journey that we fund and help on is a journey where you go from a local or regional scaling position to a global, or at least a European category leader position. So you need a decent market as well. So if all these things, any of these things do not match out, it's a bad situation, right? Yeah. And we have a lot of boxes that we tick. We do an internal first screening, then we dig a little deeper, then the company pitches. So there are many pitfalls. Yeah. But one thing I would say, be totally honest from the start. Don't hide, you know, all the cons and all that. Please tell us. We will discover at some point. So bring them on from the start. It's much better. That's at least for sure a don't.
And how do you find the companies? Do they come to you, or do you just have this radar going on all the time? Or?
There are different channels. There's inbound, there's outbound, participating in things like this. We hook up with a network of banks, accountants, lawyers, other investors. There are many ways. So it's a big sourcing is a big thing. And we typically meet. These two guys I've met 2 or 3 years ago, and we only invested in AquaGreen 3 or 4 months ago. Yeah. So you know, it's about knowing people and staying tuned. At one point, it's the right timing.
So Henning, I'm really...
Can I add one point, just because it was, I forgot to mention it before, but because Rasmus's position here is very, I mean, a lot of the points you mentioned, of course, we are met with in different contexts, but it's also very important when you go out and look for investors to figure out what, you know, where are they in terms of maturity of your company, where do they invest? And obviously Rasmus is sort of, which is relevant for this discussion, that's sort of the scaling point of the journey, but he wouldn't be relevant for sort of the first investment to start building the sort of the POC or the power proof of concept, etc. So that's also very important, because otherwise you're wasting both your time and the people you meet up with. Well, and then it's about showing, you know, traction basically in the dialogues. I think along the way is probably what Rasmus has been looking for over the last couple of years as well.
Yeah,
correct.
I was just thinking if the two of you would reveal anything about your negotiations. I mean, there must have been times when it wasn't, or was it just, you know...
Smooth sailing?
Yeah, just flying around on a pink cloud, or were you I mean, will you reveal some of, these interactions? That would be interesting to hear.
I think it was a very nice journey for Nordic Alpha Partners.
And for you?
No, I think one of the key things that Rasmus mentioned is the trust. I agree very much. I think the journey we've been on it's almost 2.5 years. We have had some timeouts during the process, which makes a lot of sense. And of course, you take the timeouts because you disagree. And we have disagreed on a lot of different things. For instance, it's not strange because we've been very focused on developing the technology, have a very solid base. So when we take in a company like Nordic Alpha Partners, they want to grow it, because that's the whole point. But you will always have to discuss the speed of how fast you want to grow this. And this is where we have had a lot of talks, which also means that when we then get the investment, then we are aligned. Not saying that we'll probably have disagreements in the future as well, but now we have known each other for 2.5 years. We have been separated, but we have found each other again. So I think that has been a very good learning, at least from our perspective.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, Rasmus, when we announced it in our company, that now we have this marriage, you said that it has not been easy, but we're still here. Remember, that's the way you put it.
And if I may add, obviously 2.5 years process is a very, very long one, but I met Henning and his co-founder earlier basically than our mandate allowed. So that's also part of the reasoning. So a typically investment process is not 2.5 years. It can be anything, in our case, from 3 to 6 months. But still, in that journey, as Henning said, from our point of view, it's extremely important that you get to know each other on the personal chemistry side, but also on the business side. So discussing the difficult things in the process pre-investment is very important. It's much better that you find out that you're not a match pre-investment than afterwards. So, and in some cases, it takes time. In the case of AquaGreen, we wanted to see some more commercial traction. They are entering the wastewater market and didn't have a lot of traction in that one. So we were also saying, please show us some traction before we invest. But we built a strategy together. We built a financial model together. We built an org chart together with different trajectories for the next 3 years, so that we're pretty much aligned on what will happen in the core scenario, what will happen if it goes slower, what will happen if it goes faster. So that we are pretty much aligned on different scenarios pre-investment. I would really recommend that you spend the time. The problem is, as Thomas said, you spend a lot of time finding investors, and it's heavily defocusing on the core business. So it's about choosing your battles, choosing the persons to engage with, but you need to do as much of that pre-investment, I would say.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I would like to change topics a little bit. The valley of death. This is something as a startup I think everyone has heard of and is frightened of. So maybe you can give your take on how to avoid this valley of death. I mean, the three of you have succeeded. What have you done?
I can answer that. You need to be persistent. You simply need to be persistent. And don't take a no for a no. You need to keep pushing. And yes, we have had different sessions where we didn't know if we had the money to pay our salary the next day, but somehow we manage. It is hard. The valley of death for these type of companies, the success rate isn't that high. But if you really have the passion in your stomach and you really are focusing on what is it that you want to achieve, you can come really, really far. You can come really, really far, because you will meet obstacles along the way, and finance is one of them. The technology itself can also be a challenge for you, because in our case, we are developing new technologies that hasn't been seen on the market yet, coming out with a brand that nobody has heard of before. Yes, it takes time, but that's where you have to shine as a founder, as an investor. You need to be patient. You need to be persistent. You need to go out there and continuously tell your story. And then eventually you will succeed. If not, then so what? At least you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I did do it. I did a try. I believed in my idea and I went for it. That's my take on it.
Yeah, but I can start saying places you did and say that we have, the co-founder and I, we have been working for 5 years for free to get this up and running. And there's a lot of funds out there that can help you develop the technology. So you get funding, you work together with universities, you develop the thing. And then when you have the equipment developed, then you can also demonstrate it. That's also possible to get funding for that. But then what is missing, as I see it, there's a gap, because there's no real funding for taking it to the market to do market penetration. So there's a gap. In the old days, there were in Danish something called Markedsmodningsfonden, so the Market Maturity Fund, but that doesn't exist anymore, and that has opened a gap for guys like Rasmus, for business angels, for private investors, and that's what makes it very hard, as I see it, for the founders. Luckily, my partner and I, we are old men, so we have some experience in this. But if we were 23 or 24 and we have just graduated, I think we would have had a problem, even though we have had a much better idea than the one that Klaus, my business partner, had, because it would not have been possible for us to take it to where we have without selling part of our baby, as I call it, on the way. And what you see then, that you see founders ending up with only a little fraction of the company that they started up from the beginning, and then you have the investors running off with it. And I think that's something that has to be looked at to find a way, because we have in soft money we have managed to get around 50,000 Danish kroner to develop the technology, and if we haven't passed the valley of death, these 50,000 million Danish kroner, they would have been wasted. So for me, it really doesn't make any sense that you put a lot of money into the development, you put a lot of money into demonstration, but you don't put any money into market penetration. I think that's a gap.
Jakob, have you used soft funding, or how have you?
No, we haven't actually. We've tried, but we haven't succeeded. And I agree that's a very obvious and attractive option, given the non-dilution that it takes. But I agree there's a gap. We also, I mean, it's not as heavy as your products are, but there's still, given that we had to have a license, develop a technology, get things up and running. There was a gap between sort of the initial idea and the prospects, which you can attract some funding for, and then the stage where you see you're in the market, you see sales, you can get unit economics, you can start showing data, and there's probably a part of the market that could be better developed there. But I would say the key for me, or the thing I would pass on, is to keep thinking about how you can show traction, even though you're not selling anything, or can you show that bigger satisfaction or progress in the development of the technology, or it's important to be able to illustrate the traction to then attract the funding during that period in other ways. Yeah.
Now that we have you here, Rasmus, I'm very eager to know what technology areas are you looking into? I mean, I represent as Clean a lot of different clean tech areas. So what are you looking into? What is of your interest the next couple of years?
Yeah, obviously we're participating in things like this to see what is happening out there. But in general, I would say, we have some examples here. Water, wastewater technologies. We're looking on the digital end of the scale. We're looking at 3D printing, robotics, automation. As I said, water technology. We're looking into energy storage, power to X related stuff. We're looking in recycling, upcycling materials. Or cases we're looking into new materials, advanced materials. Of course, EV mobility is a big transformation. Agro technology. We invested in an agro technology robot. So I would say it's a pretty big span, actually. But always there's a green and a financially sustainable part of it.
And I guess you also look into having a quite diverse portfolio, or what is your strategy?
Yeah, you can say actually that there are many different industry sectors, but there is a common denominator, which is the green and the financial strong business case, and the hard tech for us. Yeah, it can be other things for other investors, of course.
Yeah, of course. All right. I mean, we're getting near the end, so I would like to, since this is about scaling climate technologies, I really want to talk about impact, because I think all of you are in this because you have an ambition to create impact. So I would like to hear each of you, how do you create impact, and what are your plans for the next couple of years? How will you increase your impact? So I think we'll just maybe start with Jacob this time,
Okay.
and then, yeah.
Great, thanks. No, basically we launched earlier this year and are gradually scaling the solution, you could say, but our big ambition for this year is to actually create a movement. One thing is you have the technology, you have the solution that can make this happen, channel the money from a person to a cause. Now we want to build a movement around this, because the more we are on the platform, around the platform, the more power we have as a platform to go out and create more impact opportunities. So that's basically what is next. I mean, mobilizing more capital to the sustainability agenda, and then creating more impact per, crown invested. So right now we are in, certain types of investments, but we'll keep pushing the boundary for what other types of investments are possible to add to the platform and make available to people that they can't access currently.
And I think what's interesting, Jacob, is that for only 500 kroner, you can start investing. So I think everyone out there, I mean, go do some green investments and
Yes.
get started. Yeah.
This is Duland.com, it's all open. So, that was the commercial break.
Yeah, but I think it's so relevant. So, and Rasmus,
Yeah.
what are your plans for
Well,
creating impact?
For us, it's quite simple. We are funding all the exciting companies out there, and their ambitions and their kind of vision to make a transformation in the global market. So we are funding that, and we are adding value through our value creation model, which is about helping the founders build the right strategy and execute it afterwards. It's a fantastic job, because I look at all these fantastic companies and help them on the way.
How many companies do you engage in? How many will you engage in 2022?
Well, we invested in 10 companies so far, and I have to tell you that we screened more than 1,000.
To find the 10?
Yeah.
Okay. So 10 again next year, or?
No, probably. It's typically 2 to 4 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thomas, I know you have lots of plans and a lot of things are going on.
For certain, we will definitely continue our market penetration, especially in the UK. We have today a very close partnership with Anglian Water, which we actually met via Clean.
Yeah.
And we are currently doing a big project at a housing association in Northampton. Parallel with this, the technology that we have developed has actually been verified by L'Oréal in Paris, who is actually using our device in order for them to formulate new shampoo and conditioner products. So that's an area which we haven't seen being developed. They are quite keen on talking with us, having Guardio and L'Oréal products being entered into the hotel market again, which is slowly coming back on track. Since then, we have also been developing this new sensor that is addressing this leaking toilet challenge, which obviously is very, very huge in the UK, but also here in Denmark. So we are in dialogue with municipalities, especially out in schools, where you have different scenarios. Not only are we able to detect leaking toilets, but we can also detect the number of toilet flushes, which you can use for optimizing cleaning routines, etc. But again, our main focus is going out, motivating people to change behavior, especially when they're taking a shower. And here the purpose is obviously save water and reduce your energy consumption.
And is your device, can you find it in Danish stores right now?
No, we are purely B2B.
Okay.
We have been approached numerous of times with fathers who especially have teenage daughters who they would like to motivate to take shorter showers. We will be a B2C product eventually, but for us it's a lot easier, I put it in bracket, to speak with one who has 200 shower cubicles than one who has one shower cubicle. That's why we are purely B2B focused.
Great. I see a potential with the teenage daughter as
Yes.
well. So
Yes, I
yeah. And you, Henning, what's going to happen?
What's going to happen? Yeah. Well, we have this tagline says that we're going to turn a problem into a resource, and we do it by treating biomasses so that we make sure that we send phosphorus back to farmland, that we remove the environmental pollutants, and we destroy them simply during the process. And then we reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by not taking biomasses out on farmland anymore. we have done that now in Denmark. It doesn't make any big change. So we have to go global. So that's why, of course, we have an investor in now. That's the whole point. So we have to do this big scale, because otherwise it will make no difference. So that's what we're going to do in the future. And I think we have, as a Danish company or as a country, Denmark, an obligation, really, to take these green technologies that we develop and make sure that we roll them out on a global scale so they can really make an impact, just like we did with the wind turbine industry. Mm. So that's why we have actually said on TV2 directly that we are going to be bigger than Vestas. So that's what we're going to do.
A good ambition. Yeah. Well, I think those were the words, and I think with this, I feel confident that there are huge opportunities to actually scale climate technologies, and I think Denmark is in a unique position, because I think by you working together and standing together, I mean, people will look to Denmark and find these unique green solutions. And of course, as you say, Denmark is not a big enough market, so of course we need to go abroad, export, we need to make the solutions make a difference on a global scale. But guys, I think it was really interesting hearing all of your viewpoints, and I just want to thank you for joining Green Impact Week here today. Thanks.
Welcome.
You're welcome.